Morning. Okay. So far we have studied how we can write down SQL queries, particularly static SQL, how we can write it down inside a program, inside Salesforce Inspector, maybe inside a query. There are three different ways to execute an SQL query, but all three we have covered. We know how we could write down this SQL query inside query editor, inside a program, as well as inside Salesforce Inspector. Then we also have studied how to, particularly inside a program, for executing a query inside a program. The query is a part of your Apex program. Then how could you collect the result? In the event if the query is returning you a single record, whereas if the query is returning you a multiple. So that we have studied just yesterday. Yesterday's session we have studied like how we can collect the result of a query when the query would give you only one record in return, and how to collect the result if the query would return you multiple records. That we have studied in yesterday's session. Now let's try to understand the different clauses. So clauses particularly are being used. There are a few type of the clauses. I can go back and show you where by having limit of set. So these all are called the clauses. In like and while they are operators, we are going to use them as well in like and these two and in percentage symbols. But they are called as operators. Operators are different, clauses are different. Operators are different and clauses are different. So we are now starting with the clauses. So clauses are used particularly to filter out the result and to exactly get what we want from a query. So clauses are used to filter out the result based on certain conditions. We were going to impose certain conditions. And then how we wanted that data to be get represented. Because understand, if you would fire a query, take this, if you would fire a query, select ID, name, count, and maybe I could include few more fields over here like phone, like industry, like ownership, like active status. And now if I would fire a query, it's going to fetch everything when all of the records from the objects are going to be written. But particularly, let's say, if I just wanted to see only those records where the industry value is, let's say banking. So how could I apply this kind of filter? And you see, you have used them, but in a different way. You have studied something called as enhanced list view, this one. So when you would go with that all accounts or all cases or all contacts, you are looking into this kind of result. I mean, what we have get right now, see, 138 records. Without any filter, without any condition. So what you are seeing right now, when you select this option, all accounts, this is as good as this query. The only difference could be like, the fields what we have used. Like here, account name, phone, rating, industry. So even that could also be arranged. That could also be arranged over here in the. So I mean, this list view options internally they are being managed by using SQL queries. Internally, they are being managed by using an SQL queries. That means when you would select an option called like all accounts, or maybe if you would select an option like all contacts. So what happens internally is a query has been, there is a query, all accounts for all contacts. And when you select this option, internally a query of this kind is executed. It would fetch the data from database.com, particularly with that object, and it would display it over. But because that is happening in the backend, we usually don't realize it. And moreover, we have not studied that so far. We were being unaware about the mechanism of getting data from the database query part. So we used to thought that this is a built-in feature. Of course, it's a built-in feature. The list view option is present in almost in every object, right? You can find it everywhere. And you also have learned how you could insert certain more options. Like for example, instead of saying everything, if you have we have built up an option, the second one, the banking account and hot rating. So we also know like how we can apply the filters to that. And this was the same thing which I am actually going to tell you. Like, so this is also, like how you can filter out the data, but without using SQL query. But that was there in the front end, right? That was there in the front end. Now, for example, in the same way, if you wanted to see in your program, for example, you wanted to fetch only those records where the value of industry is banking, or the rating is hot, or maybe like annual revenue is greater than 5 lakh. So I just don't wanted to fetch everything out of the record. Rather, I have a condition, and I'm interested only in those records, those who will fulfill, those who match with the conditions I'm having it, like industries banking or maybe annual revenue values, this one, something like that. So in the front end, you already know this concept, but in a different form called as list view option. Internally, whatever option you would create or which is already present, they are being managed with some sort of SQL queries. But because that executes in the back end, we usually we're unaware of. But from now onward, at least, because see, you are moving towards the programming, you are becoming a programmer. Now internally, because this is getting executed internally with the SQL query. So from today onward, at least you could know, at least you should know, or maybe what to say, you should be aware about this, like whatever is in the front end, it's actually being backed up with certain coding in the back end. But see, uh, uh, Salesforce particularly, Salesforce is like a technology where everything is available, like your front end, your back end, your database connectivity, integrations, deployments, and everything, even the testing also. So it tries to hide the complexity as far as possible. And that is the main reason, this doesn't happen in India. But in other countries, mostly with the US, Europe, and Canada, I mean, apart from India, especially, we don't have any in Salesforce like it doesn't happen in India. Like if you just did the admin part, we have completed as a module one, you will going to get the job. I mean, usually this though doesn't happen in India because India, if a business comes in India, if a requirement comes in India, that mostly comes for the development. India is an open market for software development. So whenever something comes to India, it actually mostly comes for the development. But that is the reason we here have more requirements for the developers. So in India, I don't think it's possible that if you have done this admin part, you're going to get a job. But this is a very common thing I have seen. I have worked with so many of them, so many of those peoples. Those who just have a knowledge of this front end. Whenever whenever I have worked with them, I found that they doesn't know anything about the coding part. They doesn't know anything about the SQL queries, Apex, integrations. They usually is unaware about that. But they have a good knowledge of the front end. So even if though those guys, those who doesn't knows how the things works in the back end, they are having a job. So that's a good part with this technology. Unfortunately, this is not happening in India. But anyways, that's not an issue with us. I mean, of course we are learning it in a very what to say. We are learning this as a full package. We are not just covering everything related to classic. We are also able to get lightning. So I don't think you are going to you are going to face any difficulty out of this unless you have been prepared. You are preparing yourself in a good way. So whatever you see, like the list view options in every object, almost there is a list view, and then it have the option, or you have this facility that you could even modify them, or you could even create your own new view option. But see, whenever you create them, internally it creates an SQL query. Internally it creates an SQL. So that is what we are going to learn. How to filter out the records. How to filter out the records for certain conditions. So if you wanted to impose, for example, with this, now I just don't wanted to see everything. Right now it's fetching me all of the records, or 128 records, all of the records from the object. But I'm more interested to look into only those records where the industry value is banking. Let's consider this is my requirement where I don't want it to see all account record. I wanted to see only those accounts record. Give me the value of industry's value. How I'm going to apply filter? How I'm going to apply that filter onto the scope? So for that there is a where clause. Where. For that there is a where clause. There's a where clause, right? So I'll start this within a series which have been written over here. Let me first start with the limit clause, right? I don't want it to mix up with this sequencing. Let me just start with the limit. So limit, I have already shown you, like if you wanted to restrict the number of the records that are being fetched, so you can use a limit clause. But for right now, like I'm receiving 138 records. I wanted to see 10 of them. I can give limit as 10, and then if I would export, so I'll just see the 10 records. I'll just see the 10 records. All right. And let me tell you one more condition related to limit. Related to limit. See, people used to say that, let me try to show you something first of all. Those who have studied SQL, structured query language, if any one of you, please let me ask you this first of all, then did any one of you have an idea about SQL, structured query language? Do any one of you have this idea?
Yes, a little bit.
All right, so Sheila have this. That's good. I mean, why I was asking, because she could confirm whether I'm saying this or not. So in SQL, structured query language, when you execute this, there's a wildcard character called as asterisk. So if I would form a query, let's consider this is a SQL, structured query language. If I would give this select asterisk from account, not imposing any limit over here, let's select asterisk from account. Now, Ruchira, can you please tell me, if you remember, what would happen in that case?
So all the fields, whatever in account object we have, so we'll get to know all the fields in output.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. See, so in SQL, there was a wildcard character. I don't say for this asterisk star. So when you give this, it's going to fetch out everything out of the object. But if you try with same with the SQL, it's going to give you the error. SQL does not have any wildcard characters called star. Right? What we have only two of them. I have listed them out at ampersand and sign, sorry, and percent is simple. We only have two of them. If we talk about wildcard characters, we have only two of them, and that percent symbol, these two symbols. But we don't have any symbol called as your asterisk star, right? So people used to say about this, like even I was also teaching the same thing before the Salesforce inspector. I'm telling you one more benefit with the Salesforce inspector. So even see, if I go, I'll take you to the developer console, and if I would try the same query over there, it's again going to give me the error. Let me try to show you that. So if I would using this, just make some adjustment with the screen controls. Yeah. So if I would try to execute it over here, you are also going to get this error. See, unknown errors while parsing the query. So in Apex programming in SOQL, there's nothing like a star. It's nothing like a star. And there was no way, get everything. But with Salesforce Inspector, there is a facility. Let me tell you that. Let me tell you. So there is a facility, there is a function called as field all. See, fields all. If you wanted to see every field data, like star, you can make a use of this. You can make a use of this fields all. And now if you would use, this is a function, by the way, this is not a symbol, this is not a wildcard character. It's everything I have taught you, everything what you see is having a bracket, opening and a closing round bracket. This is a function. So you can use this function inside the query. There's a predefined function. Let's see what happens if I would export. So it would ask me to use limit clause of maximum. So yes, there is a way to see everything. There is a way to replicate that asterisk. Can have a similar kind of functionality. But if you are using fields all function, you compulsory would require to give limit. Now it's up to you how much you want. Maximum it could be 200, right? Maximum it could be 200, from 1 to 200. So now see, this query would return you all columns data, all fields data. ID is deleted, master record name, type, parent ID, billing street, billing city, billing state. Understood? So this would return you every column record, every field record of account check. You can scroll and you can see. 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 But understand, I have shown you the way. And there are few more ways, by the way. If you are not interested in all fields, because all would contain all standard and custom, you can have the fields custom. There are three different forms of the function. Fields all would return you everything. Fields custom would return only the custom fields out of the object, right? And field standard would only return only standard. You can try with them. To see, you can try. These all are the custom fields inside account. If you would replace this with the field standard, it would going to give you all of the standard fields, by the way. And if you wanted to literally see everything, you can go with the fields all. You can use fields all function, and it would going to return under the circumstances. चलो यहाँ पे कुछ इसके पहले कि अपन आगे बढ़े, थोड़ा सा ना मैं क्लैरिफिकेशन देता हूँ इस बारे में। इसको आप एफिशिएंटली कहाँ पे यूज करें, ठीक है? See, first of all, we are learning Apex program. We are learning Salesforce. Salesforce is a cloud-based technology, isn't it? We know this from day one itself. जब आप मेरे पास आए और जब मैंने आपको पहला सेशन उसी दिन मैंने क्लियर किया कि देखो, what you are going to learn is a cloud-based technology. Everything, whatever you would be learning out of this syllabus would be cloud. Is available on the cloud. You don't require to install any software. Data loader को थोड़ा सा साइड में रख दो अभी. उसकी भी जरूरत नहीं है। मैंने आपको डेटा लोडर डॉट आईओ सिखाया, मैंने आपको सेल्सफोर्स इंस्पेक्टर सिखाया, डेटा इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट विजार्ड जो कि सेल्सफोर्स का ही पार्ट होता है, अंदर में होता है। सो यस, देयर आर सो मेनी अदर पेज, ठीक है। अब डेटा लोडर ही इंस्टॉल करना इज नॉट, और वैसे भी डेटा लोडर के साथ में अपनी कुछ रेस्ट्रिक्शंस है, लाइक यू फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वुड रिक्वायर आपके पास में विंडोज 10 एंड अबव ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम होना चाहिए। फिर आपके पास में मस्ट हैव टू फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इंस्टॉल दैट जावा रन टाइम सूट वगैरह डालना, so I'll have that difficult installation. Every on-premise technology have this. Every on-premise technology have a certain minimum hardware requirement, minimum system requirements, right? These all were the difficulties हमने ये भी पढ़ रखा है यार. In fact, if you remember, the first session was a difference between an on-premise and on-cloud technology, isn't it? So that time we have discussed. That time we have discussed so many of points out of that. उसमें ये भी हमारा point हुआ करता था कि this always requires an installation. Every on-premise technology always requires an installation. And when it comes to something is going to get installed into your system, every application come up with a certain minimum requirement, right? चलो वो सारी बातें मैं क्या बता, जस्ट फोकट होता है उससे। कभी मैं बात करते करते इतना दूर निकल जाता है। हाँ, so I was trying to explain you कि आप कहाँ पे इसको यूज करें, आप कहाँ पे फील्ड सॉल्व को यूज करें, ठीक है। See, it's never recommended to see everything. Like even though I guess I have written certain best practices. Certain best practices I have written side in this theory, which you can use, which you have to use, not you can. Have to use. Every time, whenever you are dealing with SQL query, don't fetch unnecessary fields from the object, because that would occupy a more amount of memory. It could hamper your performance. See, this information, what you are looking over here in the form of a table, this information, they are not coming from your system, isn't it? You know this. This is coming from a database server, database.com. There is a table called as account. And this information is coming out of the cloud, right? This information is coming from there. Do you literally requires everything to be get fetched? Try to understand this question. Ask this to yourself. Or you just want, you are interested in seeing a specific setup. For example, if I would ask you, can you please show me only those accounts where the industry is banking? What you require? You require to, like, you obviously you won't require this kind of query. Rather, you would be executing a query like this. What you told me, you wanted to see, I mean, those accounts where the industry is banking. All right, I'll show you like ID column, I'll show you the name column, and I'll show you like industry column. This much is sufficient. I'll going to put up certain conditions over here. That's a different story. But I could, I mean, I am more interested to show you only the records of those three columns instead of looking into it. So when you use fields or fields custom, when you use typically a field function, you will get everything. There is a way. Yes, there is a. Yes, there is a way to look into everything. People used to taught previously that you cannot have the functionality of asterisk. There is nothing like select star from the count. Select star from the. Previously, I also used to taught the same thing. For my previous batches, if someone would go the past and look into my videos, I have taught the same thing. And there is no way you are going to fetch everything out of there. You always have to be very precise. You always have to be very sure what fields you wanted to fetch. Just include them. And even that is a best practice. भाई साहब आपको यही करना है हमेशा, आपको यही करना है, because we are dealing with a cloud technology. We have to be sure कि हमें कौन-कौन से fields का काम है. बस वही fields आपको ना, only those fields you will have to include inside your query. लेकिन I'll tell you, अभी मैंने आपको दो बातें बता दी, ध्यान से सुनो. मैंने आपको दो बातें बता दी. जनरली ये बहुत कम लोगों को पता है. जनरली ये बहुत कम लोगों को जाता है कि that yes there is a way that you could fetch out. I'm not sure whether this query would work in editor or not. I actually मैं query editor use ही नहीं करता, so how would I? मैं एक बार try मार के देखता हूँ साथ. मुझे भी नहीं पता whether it's going to get executed. It's executing this, but no, it's not. It's executing, but yeah, this is how it's looking like. So I guess it's executing, but it's not displaying this problem. Yes, yes, it works in query editor, but you can see the result. This result is not readable, right? ठीक है, चलो field sort जो है ये वर्क करता है, लेकिन इस इतना इतना अच्छे से नहीं दिखा पाता. Anyways, तो कहाँ इसको यूज कर? अब you know this, like अभी आपको ये तो पता चल गया कि yes there is a way in the SQL there is a way that you fetch out everything. लेकिन उसको यूज क्या करते? पहले तो वो तरीका क्या है, क्या तरीका है जिससे आप सब कुछ जान सकते हो? There's a fields function. Fields. All means all of the fields. Custom means custom field. Standard means standard. But whenever you are using a field function, it must backed up with limit. Always say you must have a limit, and maximum is 200. Could ask to display 200 records up to 200. So right. So limit becomes compulsory when you are using fields. और क्योंकि मैं लिमिट पढ़ा रहा था इसलिए मुझे अचानक से याद आई बात. ठीक है, यहाँ दोनों बातें हमने सीख लिया. हमने लिमिट को भी जान लिया और हमने एक नई चीज जाना है जो मैक्सिमम लोगों को नहीं पता. अब मैं आपको वो बात बताता हूँ कि इसको हम यूज कैसे करें. देखो ये कई मर्तबा इस तरह का आपको मेरा डिस्कशन. if you're learning something, if I'm teaching you something, a concept, and if I have I have used that, so where exactly what was the requirement where I have used this? Let me tell you this. Abhi recently, one second. Okay. So fields all, whenever if you are using, you must have a very strong reason to use these clauses, because generally it is not recommended. It's not recommended to see everything. We should have, whenever we are using an SQL query, we should always have a precise requirement, like, I wanted to see the records of these columns, right? Not everything. But yes, there is a way. Yes, of course, there is a way. This is a function by which you can list out everything. And whenever you are using a field sort, it must be backed up with the limit. Maximum, it will be 200, not right. So that was about limit. That was about. Let me see when I could talk about the next clause or not. You can go with some of their. There are some of the examples. You can go with them. Now I'm going to talk tomorrow on this, because every clause would require a bit explanations onto them. I cannot make it in the next 10 or 20 minutes. So from the all rows onward, I'm going to discuss this right. All right. Yes. Do you have any question? Do you have any questions? Yes, guys. Do you have it? Yes. Do you have anything to ask?